Can you remember a time, a moment in time, when you realized, I am about to face adversity? This is it. Hard times are coming. Hi, I'm Risa Haasbroek. I am a life coach, and today I would like to share with you 5 hidden little lessons of how you can face adversity with more ease and peace and grace. Let's come back to that moment when you know I'm about to enter some hard times. For me, that moment happened in January 2004. I was in a cubicle in a hospital waiting to be called into the x-ray room. And then there was a notice. There was a notice on the wall. It was just like a little piece of paper stuck there with that sticky glue that they sometimes use to stick up posters. That's what someone used to put this notice up. And it was just typed out. There's nothing fancy to it. And actually that sticky stuff that they used, it was bleeding through the paper, making those ugly yellow glue marks to the paper. And all the notice did was it posed a question to the reader. If you knew that you could lose your life because of cancer and you could save your life by having a mastectomy, you know what you're going to do, right? And in that moment, I knew soon, very soon, I was going to be at the point of that decision. Because after all, I did discover a lump in my chest, and there were some glands in my armpit that were swollen and painful. And yes, I was right. Within 24 hours after sitting in that cubicle, I was signing the release forms, giving the surgeon permission to do a mastectomy if he found cancer in my body. He did. Stage 3, and I lost the breast. But you know that notice on that wall, that untidy little notice, insignificant little notice, what a huge reframe that was for me. At some level, obviously, I understood that my life was in danger, that a diagnosis of cancer was very bad news. But it was when someone spelled it out in that way, that suddenly I realized what was at stake here. I could lose my life. And at that point, I had a lot to live for. I had a 6-year-old little boy and a 4-year-old little girl, and a husband who was so worried that he would be left behind to take care of those 2 kids. I wanted to live. So I was willing to make the decision to lose a breast so that I could live without any drama. That little notice was a big blessing to me. It enabled me to save my mental and emotional energy for the big fight, the fight against cancer. And that's my first lesson, hidden lesson, if you want to face any kind of adversity. See how you can reframe it in a way that it will serve you better. Actually, as a coach, that's what I love to do most. It's like using your brain to reframe things, to think about things in a different way, so that you will have the energy and the insight to face it in a different way. So it ties nicely in with my personality and my calling, and it served me very well in my own life as well. But from that little incident, from my whole a battle I had with cancer, and here I am, almost 20 years later, and I'm still okay. From that, there's a second lesson that I want you to see here, and that is like, tap into your why. Find the compelling reason why you are willing to go through the adversity. For me, it was obviously my husband and my kids. I wanted to live. I wanted to win the battle against cancer. I want to invite you to do the same thing. Find the compelling reason why you are willing to face that hardship. Okay, now for the third lesson, I want us to change tracks completely. I want to tell you about a little experiment I ran at the beginning of this year. That was when I toyed with the whole cold shower treatment. And what I tried to do, and this is something you do early in the morning because it makes you wide awake. It's like you're so alert for the rest of the day, focused too. So this is something I did in the middle of winter for 5 days in a row. I set the task in front of myself that I will keep the cold water running over my shivering body for 30 seconds, for half a minute. And let me describe for you how it more or less went. I would turn the water, make it cold enough to like tolerate, tolerate it, barely tolerate it, and start counting. Mississippi 1, Mississippi 2, Mississippi 3, I'm dying here, Mississippi 5, Mississippi 6, Mississippi 7, I've got to get out of here, Mississippi 9, Mississippi 10, Mississippi 11, this is too much. By the time I got to 20, I dropped the Mississippis, and it was just like 27, 28, 29, 30, turn it off. Of course, I felt good afterwards, but those 30 seconds, it wasn't really 30 seconds in the end because I was counting too fast, but those few seconds were the closest I've ever been to a full-blown panic attack. And I was asking myself, why am I such a wimp about this? I am a cancer survivor. And then, ta-da, another reframe, one that I love. Apparently, us humans never get used to that experience of a sudden cold temperature on our body. And that's the reason why cold showers as a treatment, as training, is used by all the armies around the world, especially for their special forces, to teach them how to respond when you are flat with all that adrenaline and to not panic. They say it's good training to keep your calm and to keep a cool head, and no pun intended, to keep a cool head when you are flooded with that I'm going to panic. I suppose it's good training for a kind of war situation, right? And we never get used to that. So that is why it's a cheap and a very effective way to teach people how to stay calm in the face of all that overwhelming emotions. Okay, it was too much for me. I let go of the whole experiment, but my big takeaway, and I think this could be helpful for you as well, is that resilience is trainable. It is not a talent, it's a skill. It's something you can teach yourself. Okay, good to know. Perhaps I will repeat the experiment again one summer now that I know the value of it. Let's now for the number 4 and number 5, I want us to use something different again. After trying so hard to teach myself and failing at it in the face of severe adversity, what my body sees as severe adversity, this cold water running over my body, it was good to realize that we can learn from other people. Yeah, it's like that whole standing on the shoulders of giants thing, right? The modeling thing. What a nice way to learn. I like that. So let's learn together from a specific incident that happened in history how to act in the face of adversity. The incident I'm referring to happens in 1911. By then, no human, as far as we know, has reached the South Pole yet. And then there was a competition between two teams to decide it is time that some people put their footprint on the South Pole. We're going to do it. There were two teams, and let me introduce you to them. They were a Norwegian team, and they were led by a guy called Roald Amundsen. He was also known as the Last Viking. And perhaps that is fitting because it seemed as if this guy had ice in his veins. And his whole approach, you can summarize it in this way: we need to pace ourselves. I'll talk about that a little bit more. The British team, that was the other team. Let me tell you about them now. They were led by this guy called Robert Falcon Scott. And his approach can be summarized by: we will white knuckle our way to the South Pole. We will use sheer willpower to conquer this thing. That's more or less how he approached it. Let's return to the Norwegians. What Amundsen said, what he decided ahead of time, that what he was only going to do 15 miles or 24 kilometers per day. No more. Even if the weather was wonderful, he wouldn't travel more than 24 kilometers per day on this quest. And he was religious about it. On December 11, 1911, remember December, we are in the southern hemisphere now, so it's in the middle of summer down there. The best available weather that's possible. Not that it's any good. Most of the days it's still very bad. But okay, so on that day, December 11th, they were 45 miles from the South Pole. That's it. And you feel the tension of Amundsen. Let's just put on the skis and get the sledges and the dogs and do this thing. Because the weather was perfect. Amundsen wrote in his journal, the weather is perfect. That's what he said. The weather is perfect. Clear skies, no wind, no snow. And yet he kept to his idea of only 15 miles per day. It took them another 3 days to get there. But get there they did. And they got there first. And then they still had enough reserve energy for the return journey. He really was thinking ahead, this Amundsen guy. Now, contrast that to Scott's team. Scott, when you look at the journal entries in Scott's journal, it was like, we are so unlucky to have this bad weather. Our predecessors had much better weather than us. He was complaining because what he was doing is, on the good days, he really pushed his team to go further and further when the weather was good. And on the bad days, they reluctantly rested. Well, Amundsen, from the beginning, he stressed the rest as well, not Scott. Kept pushing and pushing people. In the end, they reached the pole 30 days, more than 30 days after the Norwegian team. There was the little flag telling them you are too late. And then the soul-wrenching, heart-breaking return journey was still ahead of them. And they didn't make it. All 5 men perished. They died. They died on that journey. Isn't this just, it's such a sad story, but at the same time a very triumphant one. Now let's think about the lessons that we can glean, how we can act in the face of adversity from these 2 teams. And lesson number 4 that I wanted to share, key number 4 that I wanted to share with you is this way. Pace yourself. That's just the surface level little lesson. I want us to dig deeper. Remember, I'm a mindset coach. I like people to reframe things. So let's find the deeper principles so that you can start using that principle in your life. And here it is. What Amundsen did is he decided ahead of time with his prefrontal cortex what his actions were going to be. He didn't let the circumstances or the weather or the conditions dictate his actions. He let the best part of his brain, the problem-solving, wisest part of him that knows pacing is important, but also think about the return journey, all the long-term strategies to bring all of that into play. That's what he did. That was the secret of his success. While Scott, on the other hand, let the weather and outside conditions dictate his actions. He didn't decide ahead of time. And it was a very expensive lesson to learn, right? All of them perished. All of them died. That's lesson number 4. Lesson number 5 is, yes, once again, the surface level lesson is stay positive. And it's true. Amundsen was a lot more positive than Scott. And you can see it when you contrast their journal entries. For instance, Scott wrote about the weather. The weather is so against us. We are so unlucky in the weather. I don't think that any team can do it. That's the kind of entries he made. Roald Amundsen, on the other side, he wrote things like, we had an awful storm. There was a storm today. The wind blew, but we are still 12 and a half miles closer to our end goal. He understated the harshness of it, while Scott overstated it. But once again, I want us to dig deeper, find the true principle here. Let me tell you, perhaps if you only take this one thing from our presentation today, the best way, the secret for you to reach your goals is this one little sentence. Track your progress. And that is what Scott was not doing, and that was what Amundsen was doing. It ties into this concept that's called the gap or the gain by Dan Sullivan. And the gap is when you focus so much on where you still need to go, while the gain is you celebrate each success you've already made. You pay attention to every small win you've had. And that is what Amundsen is doing. Even you remember on that bad weather day when they had a blizzard, he wrote, nevertheless, we are 12 and a half miles closer to our goal. Can you see how he is tracking their progress? And that is the 5 secret steps for you, my friends. So I'm going to recap them so that they really sink in. The first one is from my experience with cancer, right? Reframe your hardship in a way that it will serve you. The second one is tap into the compelling reason why you are willing to do this. What is your why? I think it was Nietzsche who said, when you know the why, any how becomes possible. I'm possibly butchering the quote, but you get the drift, right? The third one is coming from my cold shower days, and that is resilience in the face of adversity is a skill. It can be trained, and armies do it all the time. So I'm sure that some people have a better aptitude for it, a natural talent for it. Nevertheless, it can be taught to anyone, and you can learn yourself. You can teach yourself how to stay calm, how to have resilience in the face of adversity. Number 4 is now we're going to the South Pole, and that is decide ahead of time what your actions are going to be, what your strategy, your tactics are going to be. Don't decide in the moment when you are stressed or fearful. Use your prefrontal cortex and decide ahead of time. When you are cool and calm and collected, this is how I'm going to act. And number 5, track your progress. Focus not so much on the gap where you still want to go, but focus a lot on the gains, how far you've already come. Because and these 5 steps can be used to overcome any obstacle, to really achieve any hard goal, building a business, restoring a relationship, starting to exercise more often. I've given you all 5 of them. Go crush those hard goals. Go do the hard things, because on the other side of all those hard things, that's where the life of your dreams is waiting for you.